there was always some kind of revelation I was supposed to get about my specific purpose. I just hadn't had it. And it was very frustrating for multiple years, working in those corporate jobs. But, when it clicked. And that was it. If I had not been, like I said, clear on my vision from day one, and if I didn't know it was ultimately for something bigger than me, I would have quit a million times. Instead of being overwhelmed by some huge vision, do the next thing that you know to do. Like take the next step. Hi, this is Rochelle Porter, and you're listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 297 of Dreams and Drive. I am super excited for you all to hear from today's guest, Rochelle Porter. Rochelle is the CEO of Rochelle Porter Design, which is a lifestyle brand that specializes in thoughtfully made, eco-friendly home and fashion accessories. And her journey is one that we all can learn from. Rochelle always knew that she loved writing, right? But she wasn't really sure how that would pan out in her life. It wasn't until she had this epiphany, hey, I love design, why don't I give it a try, is when she embarked on this dream driving journey. So please buckle up and get ready to hear how Rochelle was able to really make a way for her gift. It's something that we all need some encouragement and we all need some advice on how others are able to do this in their own lives. If you love this episode, you know what I'm going to say. Please make sure that you are following across social media. We are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So make sure you're tagging us. Use the hashtag Dreams and Drive. And if you want to join our email list, you can sign up at dreamsanddrive.com/join. All right, let's get into this episode with Rochelle. Hi, Rochelle. Welcome to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
I am super excited to have you on. I feel like, this has been the season of reaching out to people who have been inspiring to me and whose stories have been inspiring to me. And as I mentioned in the intro of this podcast, I first heard about Rochelle. We're both in the same Facebook group, and you had posted about one of your recent accomplishments, and I went and checked out your work and thought you'd be great to have on the show. And now here you are. So super excited for our dream drivers to hear your dream driving journey today.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm happy to be here and I can't wait to share.
So I love to start back, us going back in time. I think it's really important for us to reflect on who we were as children, right? So if I had to ask, who was the young Rochelle? What was inspiring you? Tell us about young Rochelle.
Oh man, what inspired me? Pretty much everything. Like most kids, I was super creative. Like I drew on everything, whether it was a wall or the corner of my page or whatever it was. Like I would find random wood in the backyard and make a dollhouse. I would take my clothes and cut them up and make doll clothes. And I just did literally everything I could get my hands on. I remember saying that I used to want to be an ad exec, which I didn't quite know what that was. But do you remember the show Who's the Boss?
Remind me.
With Tony Danza, and he went to be a maid at this woman's house and she was an ad exec. Anyway, whatever. I'm dating myself. It was 80s baby. But she was an ad exec. So she was a boss, which I didn't even know that resonated with me at the time, but she was also super creative and she made these commercials. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Of course, that's not what I ended up doing, but it was just an outlet for my creativity. But what I really think I got validated in first was my writing. And that's really my professional background. I wrote poems, I wrote stories, and that's what I guess adults took notice of before anything else.
And you grew up in a Caribbean household, right? You're Guyanese.
I sure did. Okay. Which that's a whole story in and of itself. But yeah, so I grew up in, very traditional Caribbean immigrant family. I was born in Guyana and my family came here when I was 5. We lived in Brooklyn. And,
what's going on, girl?
What's that?
I said, what's going on, girl? What's going on?
Right. Bana. Yeah. So, it was very much, you come over here, you go to a good school, you become a doctor, lawyer, engineer. And that was kind of the path that I thought I was on. Granted, I was not interested in either of those careers, but I knew I had to do something, quote unquote, worthwhile. So all that creative stuff that I did, it was cool, but it was never a career path for me.
All right. And I know, it's funny. I was looking at your LinkedIn, right? And I think your first, this had me cracking up when I saw it. Let me go to it. I think the first job that you have here listed is associate programmer, right? Mm-hmm. And then your headline is grossly overreacted to Y2K scare by becoming a computer programmer. So what was the trajectory for you post-college, right?
Okay.
Talk to us about that.
Sure. I thought I had taken that off, but apparently it's still there. So I went to college. I went to Rutgers for undergrad, and I double majored in English and history. So not one, but 2 useless degrees, right? According to my family.
Totally useless. To your parents.
I obviously didn't think they were useless. And I'm very grateful for the education I've had. But, everybody was like, so what are you going to do with that? Are you going to teach? And I was like, no.
I was a sociology major, and my grandmother thought I wanted to be a social worker. She's like, social work? What? You go to Princeton for social work? Just like,
exactly.
They don't understand.
You know how it is.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. I graduated, and now I'm about to graduate, and I have to get a job. So what am I going to do? And I thought I was going to maybe eventually go to law school or work in publishing or something like that, because I had always been like on the school newspaper or literary magazine and, those kind of activities. So I was heading in that direction. But full disclosure, I was dating this guy at the time and, we thought it was going to be serious. And he had graduated the year before me. And we knew this couple who was a few years older than us, and they had this brownstone in Brooklyn. They both had these super corporate jobs at, Fortune 10 companies, and they seemed to be doing great. So like that was the blueprint, So we would both be super corporate and, live this quote unquote high powered American dream life. Of course, that didn't work out. But at the time, that was kind of what I was looking at. That was the trajectory I was on. So, also, when I graduated, and this will date myself, it was 1999. And if you remember what was happening in 1999, you may not remember because you didn't remember Who's the Boss, but
I remember that. So in 1999, full disclosure, I was 8 years old. So
okay.
I remember the world was supposed to end, and we were all waiting by the stove.
Exactly.
That, when 2000 came, that we were hoping that everything worked.
Absolutely. So yes, the world was about to end. But I saw this random show one day on PBS, and the guy was talking about, what would happen in Y2K and the whole world will go to hell in a handbasket, except if you knew this particular computer programming language, which was called COBOL. I guess it's still around, but it's like an ancient language now. And that's what all the like mainframe computers for like the banking system, the hospital system, everything was programmed in. So if you knew how to, change the date from, 2 digits to 4 digits, like you would be a king in this new world that would emerge after 2000. So I'm like, that's interesting. So a couple of days later, I go to the career service office in my school because I'm still looking for a job. And, lo and behold, what do I see? A job listing for a COBOL training program at a very, prestigious investment bank in Manhattan. So I was like, So I applied, and because they were looking for liberal arts graduates, because nobody coming out of school with like a computer science degree was doing COBOL because it was old at the time. But they were looking for people to train, in preparation for Y2K. So I was like, yes, thank you, God. This is a sign. So I applied, I got the job, and I was rejoicing. My family was rejoicing because I got this quote unquote good job. And, it was in the city. I got my cute little apartment in Brooklyn. I got my whole wardrobe full of suits. And I thought I had arrived. And I had not, apparently.
I was going to say, there's a butt in there somewhere. I can hear
a huge butt. So I was completely miserable at the job. I mean, no surprise now, but, the job was extremely just a horrible fit for me. Me being a creative and an English major, it just did not fit.
You had a perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. But at the time I was just trying to, meet people's expectations and, live some kind of fantasy life that I had created in my head. So I couldn't quit the job because I had signed a lease. I had bought all these corporate type outfits. So I'm like, okay, I'm stuck. What am I going to do? So as a creative outlet, just kind of on a whim, I took this class at FIT. And it was only like a 3-day class. It was intro to fashion design or something like that. And I was like, I like clothes. Why not? So I go to the first class and, it's fun. It's cool. I like it. And then I go to the second class and the instructor tells us that if we want to work in this industry, then we're going to have to send our designs to China to get made. So immediately what I thought of was like sweatshops, child labor, human rights violations, pollution, just, all these horrible things about manufacturing in China, which of course I know now that's not always the case, but that was kind of the narrative at the time. And that was happening in a lot of factories. So I was like, nah, like, I don't want to do this, and I'm not a fashion design person anyway. I just like clothes. So, let me not even bother going back to the third class. And that was kind of it. And I just kind of put that on ice and moved on with my life.
Pause for 1 second. Isn't it interesting, right? Like this is probably like the early 2000s, right? That you took this class. And now just thinking like we're in the year 2022. And isn't it crazy now to think about how you had put that on pause 20 years ago and how much that one little seed you planted, right? Like just a 2-day course. You didn't go to the last day, right? So you went to 2 days of a 3-day course. Yep. And how that little seed would sprout somewhere down. I mean, we'll get to where it sprouted again, right? But like, it's just crazy to hear now in retrospect, knowing what you do now, how it all started then, right?
Yeah. And it's so crazy to even think about it. I had literally forgotten about that class for a good 10, 12 years. Like I completely wiped it out of my mind, forgot I even took it, forgot I was even interested in that until, a few years later, which we'll get to. That it came back into the mix.
So how did you go about, like, what was, like, I mean, we don't have to go through every, period post this, post your first job, but like, what was the general trajectory? Like, what did you think? All right, I don't like this computer programming finance world. I'm going to go down this lane and see where I excel. What was that for you?
So I worked at that computer programming job for about 1.5 years, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I decided to go back to my roots, so to speak. So I got jobs after that in like nonprofit communications, corporate communications, business writing, so my first job after that was like doing development for a nonprofit. So writing proposals to raise funds, writing their newsletter, things like that. So that was what I knew I could do. And that's what I had been validated in since I was a child, So I just did that in different capacities for several years. And it was fine. It was not something I was passionate about, but it was something I could do and I could make money off of and make a living. I eventually went to grad school because I had a brief stint where I really wanted to be a documentary filmmaker because it was like, to me, a perfect marriage of, my love of the visual and also writing. Did that for a couple of years and realized I did not want to be a documentary filmmaker. I liked the industry and the business of it all. So I kind of just went back to like corporate and doing, corporate communications and business writing.
The way you say that, though, it sounds like you may not have been fulfilled. Were you?
Absolutely not.
Okay. At all. You're like, I just went back there with this.
No, like I knew I wasn't clear on exactly what I wanted to do or what it looked like, but I knew I wasn't fulfilled and I knew that I would have to do something else in life. I was just not cut out for corporate America. Like I knew that from jump, but I just didn't know what the out would be.
Why do you think you stayed for so long, though? I think that's a question that a lot of us, ask ourselves. Like, why do you think, for you personally, why did you just kind of succumb and say, all right, I'll keep doing it though?
Because I had bills and reason number one, and because I didn't know what else to do. I knew there had to be something else out there. I just didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I would be leaving to go do. And it took a while to discover that.
Beyond writing, though, what were some of the skills or the things that you were learning about yourself and what Rochelle was capable of?
That's a good question. So it was something, it's funny because I had zero value for it at the time, but I always, like I said, from a child, I drew on everything. Like everybody who's even gone out to eat with me, like when they give us the to-go box, like I'll pull out my pen and draw on the package. And I did that at my corporate jobs. Like I would be in these super long meetings that lasted hours and hours. And I'd have this big legal pad in front of me and people would think I was taking notes, but really it was just like a whole, like pages after pages of elaborate doodles. And when somebody would be talking or making a presentation, I'd be looking at, the color of their blazer rather than listening to what they're saying. So I had this keen visual sense and just this drive to draw and create. And to me, it was just what I did. It was an outlet. It wasn't a talent or a skill or anything special.
So can you talk to me? You said like it took you had forgotten about this design class that you took way back for like almost a decade. When was that moment where you're like, let me put this other inkling, this other, desire, passion, interest, of mine into motion and see what happens from it?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So it wasn't one particular moment. It was sort of a collection of little moments that I finally started to connect the dots with, because apparently I'm hard-headed and I have to see like sign after sign after sign.
It happens to all of us, right? We all have that.
Yeah. Mine took a little bit longer than most, but I'm here now. So I think the first thing was I took this art class, but it wasn't like a traditional art class where they teach you how to draw or paint. It was more like philosophical and kind of woo. It's about your heart as an artist and what it means to be creative and how, God made each of us creative and what the purpose of that is in life and blah, 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 but it was life-changing for me. So I was in this class and we were doing some kind of group project and this girl was in the class with me. And one day she just kind of looked at me and she's like, I think you had a dream a long time ago, but you didn't think you could do it. So you put it down. But I feel like God wants you to pick it back up. Like it's time to do it now.
What? Like she just said this to you randomly?
Randomly. I didn't know her. We had just started the class. She's a friend now. Okay. But, back then I had no idea who she was or where that even came from. And, right now, from my perspective now, it seems like some huge revelation. But back then it was like, okay.
Oh, wait. You. So at that moment, you didn't really take it seriously.
I didn't take it. It's not that I didn't take it seriously, but it was like I had picked up so many things during the course of me taking that FIT class to, 12 years later, it could literally have been anything because I've always had multiple interests, multiple passions. So it could have been anything, but I kind of filed it away in the back of my mind. And then what else happened? Like all these weird things would happen. Like I was getting on a flight one day and the Delta agent looked at my passport and she's like, your name sounds like a clothing line. And I was like, okay. And like stuff like that. Okay. I'm like, what? But when she said it, it recalled other things that other people had said in that vein or just random statements that people would make. Like I had a friend who looked at me one day. She's like, every time I look at you, I just see fashion. And I was like, okay, you like my outfit? Thank you. But she's like, no, it's something more than that. And I was like, I don't know what you mean, but whatever. So, every little inkling that I got, every little phrase that a random person would utter, no matter where I went, I finally started to connect the dots, like, okay, there's something here, like what's going on. And then, I would just be like in my alone time, I started to get these downloads. Like I would see, clothing, bedding, home decor, like all these different like business ideas. And I've never had those before. I never dreamed of it. I never imagined it, but I would like write it all down in my book. Like it would just come out of nowhere. Well, seemingly nowhere. And then this woman one day, I didn't know her that well, but we were Facebook friends. And I think I would post like stuff that I doodled on Post-it notes and take pictures of it and post it on Facebook back in the day, not meaning anything by it. And then she was like, she hesitated to tell me this. She's like, yeah, I see all those doodles that you're doing. They're not just doodles. It's something more. And I see, you having a business and you're making stuff in other countries, but the quality will be really high and you'll create opportunities for other people in, impoverished countries and this and that. And it was like, I was stunned because that's exactly the downloads that I got in my quiet time. Like everything she was saying was stuff that nobody knew anything about but me and God.
Hey, Dream Drivers, this week's episode is brought to you by Walmart. Black and Unlimited is a celebration of being whatever we want to be. It's being Black and rock and roll and country singer, Black and outdoor adventurer and vegan, Black and cosplay fan and comic book lover and a cowboy too. And for who we are and anything else we want to explore, there's Walmart. We can pick up a yoga mat to be Black and zen, the ingredients we need to be Black and vegan, or a skateboard to be Black and rad and fearless. And y'all know that I'm multidimensional, so I can go to Walmart to pick up the ingredients I need to be Black and chef and mom and self-help lover and DIY lover and photography lover and more. Walmart is always there to help you explore all the different passions and interests and hobbies that you have. And Walmart is always there to help you explore all the different interests, passions, and hobbies that you have as a dream driver. So celebrate all you are, celebrate being Black and unlimited, feel free and inspired to explore anything and everything that could bring you joy. Yo, Dream Drivers, you could do it all without breaking a sweat, and you can do it all in style. From being a boss executive to lunches and brunches with your girls, to the kids' homework, family dinners, that much-needed self-care time, trips to the grocery store, and a weekend getaway that's anything but a getaway. That's why Infiniti fully reimagined the QX60 to help you conquer it all with ease. Even when you have back-to-back conference calls, gotta be on top of the kids' recitals, dance classes, or sports practices, not to mention your side hustle because, listen, dream driving is important and should be prioritized. A luxury SUV as functional as it is stylish and is as versatile as it is serene. Available features include seating for up to 7 passengers, a suite of active safety features, and massaging front seats. And I don't know if you looked at the all-new Infiniti QX60 yourself, but it really is stylish and is something that I would definitely be proud to be driving around with me and my baby as a boss mom, right? Introducing the all-new Infiniti QX60 designed to help you conquer life in style. Now, with extremely limited availability, contact your local retailer for inventory information. I was going to ask you, are you a spiritual person in the sense that you thought, maybe this is really connected to some other, a higher being is trying to...
Absolutely. Okay. Definitely. 100%. And I knew there was always something, there was always some path, there was always some kind of revelation I was supposed to get about my specific purpose. I just hadn't had it. And it was very frustrating for multiple years, working in those corporate jobs. But, when it clicked. And that was it.
So when you said when it clicked, and that was it. So I'm imagining you, all right, let's get this whole dream driving metaphor going now, right? You're like, all right, it clicked. I'm thinking of the seatbelt, right? You're in the front seat. You put it on your seatbelt, that click, click sound, right?
Yes.
So where did Rochelle go? What was the first stop? What did you do? Did you look through the rearview mirror? What was the whole... Tell me what you were thinking as now as you're the passenger in this dream and you're about to put it into motion.
Yes. So wait, am I the passenger or driver?
I'm sorry, driver.
Okay. Yeah, it was the car was nonstop after then. So I think the first thing was after all this revelation started happening, or maybe during the same time, I would go into Target or Nordstrom or regular stores that I go into all the time. But like my eyes were open for the first time. I looked at items throughout the store and I saw they had prints on them. And I was like, those prints look exactly like stuff that I doodle when I'm bored at work. And how does that work? Like, how do people get artwork onto product? So I started doing research, started watching YouTube videos, going to trade shows.
What year was this, if you don't mind me asking?
This was, that's a good question. This was like maybe like 2013-ish was when it started, like when the epiphanies first started.
Okay.
But I didn't have a business or anything remotely like that at the time. But so I started finding out that what I was doing basically all my life was actually called surface pattern design, which is the process of taking a print or artwork and putting it on an item, whether it's a clothing item or a greeting card, a coffee mug, what have you. And I found out it was an actual industry. Like they had trade shows, people, displayed their work at trade shows, and it was licensed to different brands. So, when you see, a random like greeting card company and it has pictures on it, like somebody drew that, the company paid them a licensing fee to use their artwork. So I was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So started learning more about that, getting into that, more about licensing. And I'm still, very much open to licensing. I have a licensing contract now. The other thing, there was my passion for the artwork and the creativity, but there was also the thing that pissed me off, which was like people being mistreated in manufacturing our products. So my business is basically a perfect marriage of, my passion and the thing that made me mad. So I'm like, if I license to these brands, that's great, but I have no control over how the product's made, where it's made, the condition of the workers, the environmental aspect. I just don't know. So I was like, let me try to make something myself. So the first thing I came out with was a line of throw pillows. And it was like 8 pillows with my designs. And it's not because I had some like deep affinity towards pillows. It was because like I couldn't sew, and a pillow is literally a square.
Right. It's like,
so it's a perfect canvas.
You just stuff it, right? And then
exactly. Yes. Super easy. And being that it's a square, it's just like a canvas for my artwork. It's like something you would hang on a wall, but instead, you put it on your couch or whatever. So I did that. And, I think I probably launched a website shortly after that. And all this time I was still working a full-time job. And I got a good response to it. And I was like, oh, I might have something here. And that was like the very first real product that I produced myself.
So what was that response? Like, what was the feedback that you were getting from people? Were you selling products? Like, what was that like? So
I think it was 2015 where I actually, made my first little Squarespace site and put the pillows on there. And of course, I didn't do any kind of marketing. I didn't know anything about that, about marketing myself on the internet or paid ads or anything like that. But it was, my friends and family and everybody who they shared it with. And, I got some sales, and I found out that West Elm let designers and makers have pop-up shops at their stores. So I went into my local West Elm store, brought my stuff, and they liked them. And they're like, sure, you can have a pop-up shop here one weekend. And that was sort of like the public debut of my pillows.
So how did Rochelle, the designer, now you always had writer behind your name. You always had like creative. Now you have designer, behind your name. How did you feel in this moment where you were really launching into a new area for yourself?
That's a great question. I'm still like, now I fully accept my identity as an artist or a designer. But back then it was not comfortable for me. Like, it didn't feel real. It felt almost like I was playing a trick on everybody and I would be discovered at any moment. But I knew regardless of how I felt, I knew the vision that I had received, and I knew what God had said. and that had to trump everything. So I had to wiggle my way into that identity, whether I felt it initially or not.
So at this time, were you still working a full-time position?
Absolutely. I stopped working full-time corporate in 2020.
Okay.
And even up to last year, I was working part-time for part of the year. What
did you do from the time that you saw that you had traction, right? Up until like, how did you expand the brand? Because, you started with pillows and now you offer more than just pillows. And now, it's like, I guess the real question here is, how did the vision scale? Or how did you realize that there was more to this,
Sure.
this first idea that you had?
Sure. So the reason that I was even able to scale is because I saw the vision first. Like I was given that first. Like I knew it wouldn't just be pillows. I knew it would be all these other products. And pillows was just the start because it was the easiest thing to do. So I eventually, what did I do after pillows? I think we launched some other printed products made of fabric, like those zipper pouches with my prints on them. I also had like wall art, like anything that was easy to produce. We did that. And then in late 2019, I always knew like clothing was like my real passion for prints. Like I love the home decor stuff, but I loved clothes even more. Not the fashion industry, mind you, but clothes. So I found a print on demand company, and I was actually not even doing it for myself. A friend had come to me and she had an idea to make a Ankara print activewear line. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's a good idea. And she knew I made stuff. So she just was asking me for advice. And I was like, okay, so do you have the prints that you want to use? And she was like, no. And I was like, okay, have you licensed them? Have you like paid the person who made the prints to license them? Or do you know if there's like an open copyright? And she's like, no, what's that? I was like, well.
So she just had an idea, basically. She didn't really know.
Yeah, she had an idea. And she was like, oh, well, could you help me with that? Because unless it's your own print, like you got to pay for that. So just as a whim, I wasn't thinking about clothing at all at the time. Like I used some old prints that I had designed and I put it on this random template that this print on demand company had. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cute.
So, you had all this press, Rochelle. You were growing. I would love to talk about how you got your goods into stores, right? I feel like that's something that a lot of us dream drivers, like distribution is so important, right? And I know just getting that retail brick and mortar presence is especially important for retail and e-commerce businesses. Was that hard? Was that relationship driven? Like, what was the catalyst for that?
Sure. So that was almost... it was sort of like a perfect storm. So I mentioned since 2015, we were doing the pop-up shops at West Elm. And we had been doing those consistently over the course of several years. And in 2020, that's when brands started discovering that Black Lives mattered. And
right, really like in 2020, right?
Exactly. Even though we've been here all along.
Exactly.
But, yeah, they really started paying attention, and there was a lot more emphasis on supporting Black-owned businesses. And there's an initiative called the 15% Pledge that was the brainchild of a designer, Aurora James. And the thought behind that is basically if Black people comprise roughly 15% of the population, then products that we make and design should be 15% of what's on store shelves. Mm-hmm. So a lot of corporations have really taken the pledge and put their money where their mouth is, in essence. So West Elm was one of the first companies to do that. And so with me already having a relationship with my local West Elm and the 15% pledge, it was sort of like a no-brainer that I would partner with them in that way. That's how I became part of, the West Elm local program. So my products are now sold on westelm.com. And that's been a great relationship so far.
So that's dope. And I feel like Do you see a difference? Like, do you think that it always has to be? So let's say someone's listening in and they're a product, right? They're a product-based business and they want to get into a store. Do you think that's always helpful? Or what like advice would you have for somebody who is considering going that route?
I would say, first of all, do the numbers and see if it actually makes sense. There's a lot of products that I don't sell wholesale or I don't have in stores because the margins just aren't there. You know, I wouldn't be making money if I split my profits with a retailer. So, and also think about the kind of brand you want to have. Like, it sounds cool to be in a store, but there's also, you know, costs that come with that. And are you prepared to shoulder those costs? Are you prepared to, you know, if you get an order for $300,000 worth of stuff, can you actually fulfill that order? Or is it better to build your brand online through e-commerce? So it really just you have to be clear on what you want, I guess, before even launching a product.
You know, I think like looking in the rearview mirror, we're back in the car now, right? Like looking back in the rearview mirror, it should inform where you're going, right? You don't ever want to necessarily go back to that, but just like looking back in the rearview mirror for you, what's something that maybe like if you would have tweaked a little bit, maybe you would have done a different exit, you know, maybe you would have been in reverse or neutral instead of, you know, being full steam ahead and drive. Like what's something like that for you along your journey?
You know, being that I was kind of winging this whole thing up to this point. I would definitely pay more attention to the financial part of it. There's ways that I could have probably lowered my costs. You know, there's other resources that I could have looked at. There are other, you know, maybe products that I could have put out with that were lower cost. But I would have probably just thought more about the money aspect of it if I could go back.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of us, especially when you're like, you started off as a writer, right? A creative. I feel like a lot of us are, I'll speak for me personally and let me know if you agree. How's about that, right? Like, I think for me personally, as like a podcast host and, you know, interviewing so many entrepreneurs and hearing their stories, even with my own business, I get scared of tackling like the money stuff, like the accounting, the financing. But when I talk to entrepreneurs who have scaled and who've really grown the brand to beyond like being a one-person show like I am right now, they always say you have to have a team and you got to get your finances and money straight, right? And I feel like for me, that's something that's personally holding me back from growth. Because it can be scary. Like, all right, I haven't been on top of this in like the past couple years. And now to get back and now to go back and try to, you know, put everything in order. I mean, it can be done, right? So I don't want to make excuses, but I just know for me personally, that also has been like a big, big hurdle, especially when like money's just not what I like. I like talking, right? I don't want to talk about, I don't want to do the math. I want to talk, you know, about the math, but there definitely is. I know a lot of us are struggling with that as well.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. I do like money. I love money.
We all like it, right?
Right. But I also know it is not something that, you know, lights my soul on fire when I look at spreadsheets or balance sheets or whatever. But as a businesswoman, because that's what I am, if I just wanted to make art, I would do that. I would not have a business. You know, I would not incorporate and have an LLC and all that. So as a business that wants to scale and grow and be in more retailers and get more market share, I know that I don't have to be an expert in all the financial stuff, but I have to get the right people to help me with that, you know, and I have to get over the hump in my own personal limitations and my own personal intimidation at that. And it's a struggle. It's like a constant thing that I just have to do because I know without doing that, I won't get to the level I want to be at.
Who do you feel like on your team, right? Like what's one member of your team that really has been crucial to your growth, or one aspect of your business that you really need this if you're trying to grow?
Yeah. So before I even had a real team, quote unquote, so my dad has an accounting background,
Ooh,
which has helped me out a lot. Which, I mean, he's not my accountant or whatever. He's retired. He ain't trying to work for real.
Yeah.
But, he's super into the numbers, definitely more than I am, just naturally. So the idea is getting people to do what comes naturally to them to work for you. But I also have a team of like products guys and, like product managers that have worked with these larger brands and have negotiated these deals who I work with. And they're also advisors to me. So they've been really helpful in, getting the numbers and the projections in place.
This Black History Month, McDonald's is kicking off Future 22, a campaign celebrating 22 Gen Z leaders across the country who are making an impact on their communities right now. This generation may have the largest influx of young leaders since the civil rights movement. They're starting their own organizations, finding ways to empower youth and culture, standing up, and speaking out. McDonald's is showcasing their efforts and the impact they're having on the world. Did you know there's Black Sign Language? It's a form of American Sign Language that truly speaks our language. Student J.C. Smith is an advocate for the Black, deaf, and blind, and is an expert in BASL who works to help keep the tradition alive. McDonald's introduces his story and the stories of other Gen Z community leaders impacting the future on Instagram at We Are Golden. So make sure you check out We Are Golden on Instagram to hear more about these Black youth leaders and their stories. So what are you dreaming of? Adventure, more family time, a change of scenery? The nerds at NerdWallet can help you take the first step towards making your dream a reality. NerdWallet is a personal finance site run by money nerds who make it easy to compare and find the smartest financial products for you. So let's say you want to book an adventure beyond your backyard. NerdWallet can help you compare and find travel rewards credit cards so that you can use everyday purchases to rack up on points for flights, hotels, and more. Or maybe you want to spend more quality time with your fam. As dream drivers, that's important. NerdWallet can help you compare and find financial advisors so you can find less time watching investments and more time with the kids. They've got tools, calculators, and side-by-side comparisons to help you find the smartest products for you so you can turn your dreams into reality. Personally, my 2022 goal is scaling dreams and drive, so I can use NerdWallet to compare hundreds of the top credit cards and investing accounts. NerdWallet makes that super easy. Are you ready to compare your way there? Compare and find the smartest credit cards, investing accounts, and more at nerdwallet.com. NerdWallet Compare Incorporated, NMLS 1617539. NerdWallet is not an investment advisor nor an investment broker. Information is for educational purposes only. Have you ever felt like quitting?
Girl,
I'm saying that with a smile, right? Because I feel like we all do. Right. We all do. But let me be more specific here. When did you feel like quitting, and then why didn't you quit?
So there's all those years that I, worked corporate jobs, right? And there was a time, actually really before, we started blowing up in the press, that I was going to get rid of the home decor completely. It was not selling. I had these pillows on the shelf in the basement for years, and they were just not moving. And I was like, clearly there's no market for this. What's the point? And then, that pivot happened, and then I couldn't keep them on the shelf. But there were years when product was just not moving. I was not motivated to sell. There was no there was no battery in my back to do it because I was not getting validated for it. And if I had not been, like I said, clear on my vision from day one, and if I didn't know it was ultimately for something bigger than me, I would have quit a million times.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I think a lot of us too, we have these passions and we have this interest, but really knowing that why. And a lot of times people will always say, you hear this in jest, but the why is the real fuel, right? Mm-hmm. It's not the what, right? You may like designing, home decor items, but it's the why that's going to keep you going.
Absolutely.
So for you, what did you realize was your why?
Sure. So I knew from the moment I, started connecting the dots and putting this vision together, that it was bigger than me, that my business, hopefully will outlive me. That if my business was just about, like drawing pretty stuff and putting it on product, that would be one thing. But my ultimate goal is to transform the entire global textile industry so that it is more amenable to the people that wear the clothes and use the items and make the items, and to the planet itself. And, so that's a little bit lofty, to want to transform an entire industry, but that's what drives me. And I know that's part of why I'm here on Earth. So if I have a bad day, that's going to have to be okay because the vision is much bigger than that.
What would you tell to a dream driver who's listening in, right? Who is really struggling, and I love your journey because, like you said, like we started off in the year Y2K, right? And you had this whole, you did something thinking that, all right, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it took you over a decade just to begin to connect the dots, right?
Yep.
And then here we are in 2022 where you're really like, in full steam and building out this dream. What would you say to that person who's currently in that middle stage of like, all right, like I kind of have this thing. I'm scared to start it. I don't know what to do. Is it worth it? If you could be, let's say you're Oprah right now, and that person's sitting in the chair next to you, what's your word that you're speaking to that person in doubt?
Instead of being overwhelmed by some huge vision, do the next thing that you know to do. Like take the next step, because it's going to be like, I look back at stuff that I did, like stuff that I drew or business decisions that I made, 5 years ago. And I was like, ew, I was like, why did I do that? But I had to take that step in order to get here. So just take the next step and forget about the big picture.
And then with that next step, it's like, then take that next step. So
and
really
take that next step and
right?
that next step and that next step. Yeah. But like break it into bite-sized pieces.
This has been such a fun conversation. I really hope that what dream drivers get away from this is your gift will make a way for you, and don't be scared to take some risk and see what happens. Like you said, like you first started putting the dots together in 2013, and it wasn't until 2020 when you had that big, the press, right? You could have easily given up in those 7 years.
Yep.
And of course, you still had your other jobs, you still had your part-time jobs. Like you don't necessarily have to do something full-time to put the dream into drive.
Right.
And exactly. I think that's a big revelation for a lot of dream drivers today.
Yeah. And it's actually best to have a job, in my opinion. Because it sounds real cute, the whole starving artist myth. But for me, it's very hard to be creative when I'm broke. So yeah.
This has been so amazing, Rochelle. So let's go to our lightning round. You couldn't be a dream driver without your keys to success, right? So before you hit the road, what are 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road?
I think you need a teachable attitude and just an appetite for learning. Everything I've learned in my business, I didn't learn in school. I learned YouTube University, Google, reading books, talking to people, going to trade shows. You have to be a learner, I think, if you're going to be an entrepreneur or a dream driver.
Yep.
You need a decent degree of risk tolerance, because you're going to have to take risk after risk after risk. You're going to have to pivot. It's not if you'll ever pivot, it's when you'll pivot and how many times you'll pivot. So, you can't be too addicted to quote unquote security, which really doesn't exist anyway. And I think the last thing I would say is know your core values, know who you are as a person, as a business owner, and what your values are as a business. Because as you grow, as you blow up, you're going to get opportunities thrown at you. And if they don't align with your values, they will fail miserably. So define what those are before the success comes.
I love that. What's next for you, Rochelle?
Ooh, girl. Let's see. So our wallpaper line is going to come out in spring of 2022. It's something we've been trying to do for years.
Over here. Congrats.
Yes. So we're still working on that. It's going to come out any day now. We're also going to be expanding our home decor offerings. Right now we have pillows, tea towels, table runners. We're also going to include bedding, home decor, curtains, the whole shebang later this year. So I'm excited about that. And we'll also have more retail partnerships in some stores you may have heard of. So look out for that too.
What is a tea towel? So I'm on your site right now, and I just I'm like, is it a smaller? Is it like a hand towel?
It's like a kitchen towel. Yeah. Well, they do. It's like British. I think that's where the term tea towel comes from. They use it when they serve tea, but you can use it as a kitchen towel, a hand towel, what have you.
All right. And tell our listeners where they can check out your designs. They can buy something, where they can connect with you on social media.
Sure. So you can buy everything on RochellePorter.com. That's our main website. And I'm Ro Porter Design. That's ROPOR. Oh, sorry. Can't even spell my own name. ROPORTER Design. And that's on Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter. And we're also sold on Westelm.com and select home goods stores across the country.
Well, listen, guys, I am on RochellePorter.com right now looking at all these designs, and I really encourage you guys to go and support our dream driver who came on today to share her story. Thank you so much, Rochelle. This has been such an amazing conversation, and I really hope our dream drivers take away as much from this as I was able to today.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 297 with Rochelle. If you enjoyed it, please make sure that you're sharing it with your community. You can find us across the board, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're Dreams and Drive, so make sure you're tagging us on Instagram stories, posting it to your Facebook page, sending it to someone via a tweet or a text message. But please help us amplify Rochelle's message. And we really do appreciate all the help that we get from Dream Drivers in growing our community. And guys, if you want to get 21% off Rochelle Porter's designs, just use the code DREAMS21 at checkout at RochellePorter.com. That's DREAMS21 at checkout when browsing all the wonderful products at RochellePorter.com. All right? Let's go and support a fellow dream driver this Black History Month. Lastly, guys, if you want to join our weekly newsletter, The Keys, and get weekly updates delivered to your email inbox, you can sign up at dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. I appreciate y'all every week. I want to keep seeing y'all submit stories and pitches to the show. Remember, you can submit a pitch at dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. That's dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. I love to see all the cool things that you guys are up to, and just seeing those pictures come in really do help, because I really am on the hunt for new talent for the show. All right, as always, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 298. Bye, guys.